Welcome to today's episode of the podcast. I'm really excited to share today's guest's story with you all. And before we jump in, I'd really appreciate if you could take a moment and rate the podcast on Spotify or on Apple. And this is going to allow the podcast to reach more people. So without further ado, let's jump into today's episode. Okay, folks, so welcome to this week's episode, and I'm joined again with Brad. And this week we're going to talk about getting in more incremental movement into your day and just the overall benefits. We ran a 4-week steps challenge with our clients, so we're going to kind of touch on how that all went with people, what were the physical benefits they experienced, and then also why we use this really simple habit and why we get people to focus on this because of the net domino benefit it has. Okay, so before we jump into all that though, me and Brad were just talking a bit back and forth about how he's bumped up his steps recently. Do you want to maybe share what happened with you in the steps challenge first of all, and then how you've recovered from that experience?
Sure. I was an absolute no-show in the steps challenge. I was seeing some of the numbers being posted by clients, and I thought, nah, I can't do this. I can't. So I just gave up. No. I just, I don't. I used to have a Fitbit, wear a Fitbit. Now I don't. It's broken. I couldn't see anything anymore on the screen. I just haven't gotten around to getting something new. I mean, I don't like to carry my phone on me the whole time, which is what I would have had to have done. And I just wasn't getting very many steps either. Let's not lie. But yeah, just kind of actually, it's quite a cool thing about being a coach is, maybe we're not always necessarily doing the things that we advise our clients to do, but sometimes then seeing your clients do it, you think, geez, I really need to be doing this again. And it inspires you. And that's like a real kind of gift that you get when you're working with people that you don't necessarily think about at the beginning, or, when you set out to give them that advice. Sorry, that was just a roundabout little aside. But I just started thinking, how simple it could be on my rest periods between my, my strength training, just to start walking like almost maniacally pacing as if I had something seriously waiting on my mind, just back and forth, up and down for like 90 seconds. And if you do that, 3 or 4 sets of an exercise and you do maybe like 7 exercises, that's quite a lot of pacing that you can get done. And I don't usually do it. Sometimes we'll go into a deep squat, or if it's upper body, or, just kind of think more about a flexibility or mobility drill. But it was really cool. And just by the end of the session, I had got like sort of 1,800 steps, which is crazy really, because it's just like a effective maximization of time.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really nice what you said there as well about just little changes, like in particular, like between work periods, instead of just sitting. And I find as well, I can easily go, it's been like 4 hours of just sitting at the desk, and I'm like, I definitely have been daydreaming for most of this 4-hour period at this point, versus if I do kind of like 45-minute block, even though I might be in the middle of something, I just step away for like 5 minutes, go for a quick walk, maybe get some fresh air, do a little stretch, and then I sit back down again. Like it might break up the productivity flow sometimes, but I can work way more effectively for longer. Kind of, I guess, like you could say I could just go to the gym and just go in and keep doing reps instead of taking a rest period. So I'm going to do like 1,000 reps in a row versus like taking a rest every 50 reps or whatever.
Yeah. And the reality, I think, is actually, unless we're in sort of super deep focus mode, most of us don't actually work in a distraction-free environment. If you're in a shared workspace, for instance, you're being distracted the whole time. So you may as well like purposefully focus, coordinate that distraction and get some further benefits from doing so.
Yeah,
but
that's kind of
like that thing. Sorry,
go on.
No, I was just going to say, I like that recent social media post you did about how you had, I think it was something like 6 minutes between the moment that you finished a call and had another call or a separate task, and then you just set your timer for 3 minutes. You walk for 3 minutes and turn around and walk back, and then that's like a quick way of getting in additional steps, and it's just short and manageable, slotted into your day.
Yeah, like that kind of stuff, I think for people is really important to just try and even practice it. Like I do a check-in with they're all with a corporate wellness, they're with a tech company in Ireland, and I do coaching with them, and we check in usually every fortnight. So they're super busy. They're like literally as busy as you can be. They're all parents, but they're also in an extremely competitive, high level environment from a work point of view, and it's only getting busier. So we work on a lot of those types of tactics where they literally have no time. They're doing calls all day, and then they've got their families when they go home. So it's literally like practicing things that take less than 5 minutes. So like you just said, Brad, okay, I've literally got 5 or 10 minutes. So now I'm going to go to the toilet at the other end of the building, simple stuff like that. I'm going to take the stairs instead of the lift. And that way, at least you're building it into your day, like regardless of what's going on. So
yeah, another one, sorry, is to have a purposefully small drinking container. So I noticed, like, if I used to have a 750 milliliter bottle when I worked in an office back in the day. 750 milliliter bottle, and then I would drink it, a lot of water, but I'd still only do maybe 3 or 4 trips in a day. You shift to a small glass, and all of a sudden you're walking up and down the whole time. So just another little hack, as
there's
they call it.
two issues with that, though. Either you're going to walk more and drink more water, or you're just not going to drink any water and not walk at all.
Completely
So
dehydrated by the end of the day.
Yeah. So let's jump in, mate. Like we can kind of go back and forth with this, but I guess the big reason walking is one of those things that like everyone knows walking is helpful. Everyone knows that they probably feel better when they go for a walk. They went into the woods for a walk. They just got out in the morning, which is a big thing as well. They didn't check their phone. I was just literally telling Brad before we went live, like yesterday morning, I've got a lovely botanical gardens beside where I live. So I woke up, no phone, went for a quick walk for like 10 or 15 minutes. It's all trees, so lots of fresh air and sunlight. And I came back and I did just lots of writing and content creation and like deep work, we'll say, and it felt great. And then this morning it wasn't the case, and it's just the impact is amazing. Like you feel so much better doing that. So it's not about trying to do it more often than you're not is going to be the big thing. But also, if you think about the main issues that you probably have, if you're listening to this, but generally a lot of our clients have, it's like poor quality sleep, low energy, issues around injuries, and struggles with things like dietary compliance as well. Walking is like the biggest lever you can pull that's going to have a domino positive impact on those changes. So let's kind of jump into how is walking related to improving people's sleep, Brad? Do you want to maybe touch in, like, because we look at always reverse engineering the outcomes that we're looking for. So like, can you maybe paint a picture on someone, they're not sleeping well, or maybe they're going to bed, but they're awake, they can't actually fall asleep. So can you maybe give an example of how walking can help this person and what you've seen with people in the program as well, with your experience coaching them?
Sure. So I think there's 2 things really there. One is walking gives you a chance, assuming you're not sending WhatsApp messages or scrolling your social media feeds whilst you're walking. It's a great way of like just sort of decompressing from a day. Either if you could do it sort of after dinner, great way to let the mind wander freely. And I know for me, whenever I go for a walk, I come up with usually a good idea for an article or a post or something like that. So there's one way of doing it, is that your brain has a chance to kind of work through whatever's happened in the day. That's one. And then also it's just like an increased energy expenditure. Obviously, the more energy you expend, the easier it's going to be to fall asleep, and the more likely you're going to be to stay asleep. Those two definitely also to go to that sort of, if you got out early enough and you got the sunlight in the eyes, sort of unmediated through sunglasses, for instance, that's another way of helping set your sleep rhythms up for the day.
Yeah, that's a big one, mate. Just like being actually tired, because a lot of people are not moving enough. So if you're doing less than 6,000, 5,000 steps a day, and you're on your phone late into the night and you don't have any time or space to decompress, like Brad said, everything is going to suffer. And then you find at the end of the day, you're just kind of wired and you're just lying in bed wondering why you can't sleep. And like this has happened now repeatedly with clients who've come into the program. They said they just haven't been able to sleep well for years. And do you want to tell people what we also focus on from a sleep benefit? So it's walking, and then what else do we focus on from a like end of day routine point of view?
Sure. Well, obviously the walking is a big part of it, but then just having a regular, or as regular as possible, routine in the evening. So usually the advice is to start small. So say you're going to bed at 11:30 and you're watching things or looking on your phone until late, you'd say, well, let's try and turn all those electronics off a little bit earlier, say like half an hour earlier than normal, and try and get to bed half an hour earlier than normal, and do something like read fiction or jot down a few kind of brain dump things. So get what's on your mind, get it onto page so you don't worry about it in the evenings. And also just add in a bit of planning, what you have to do tomorrow. So that's the same thing as the brain dump, just getting it out of your mind onto paper, so it's not something that's just going around and around. But essentially, it's like forming a habit, a routine, a kind of sleep or evening routine, which is just prepping you as best you can for a good night's sleep.
Yeah, it's a big one. Just getting into the habit, like Brad said, just giving yourself time to wind down, because like I don't want to speak for other people, but I never feel bad when I give myself space, but it's always a struggle to give myself space, because there's so many things I could be doing. Oh, I can listen to this podcast, I can watch this show, I can do X, Y, and Z. And then when I end up doing too much of that, I feel tired. Then I'm frustrated that I didn't give myself space, or I feel more overwhelmed. And then when I give myself that 30 to 60 minutes at the end of the day and in the morning, I just feel more capable and ready to go with everything. Would you be the same with that, mate? Or how are you feeling about
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. I mean, we all are familiar with how plugged in we are, and not just sort of with technology, but just into the sense that we ought to be doing something of value, and value is equated with output or productivity for most of the time. And actually, what can be incredibly valuable is for 30 minutes lying on the floor, looking at the ceiling in silence, listening to your breathing. And I'm not even talking about meditation, just sort of an absence of activity, which was really rare. I mean, I think the last time I did that on a kind of consistent way was in my 20s. I thought that's what it meant to be a philosophy student. But it's a powerful activity is sort of the absence of activity.
Yeah, definitely. And I think anytime, like for me, anytime anything creative that comes in is always when I give myself space. So I'm never getting all of these creative ideas if I'm, back to back with like just work or inputs, like it's just trying to lower that on especially first thing in the morning, last thing at night. And it's just going to have this net compound impact of, okay, you're going to feel less wired. Now you're going to be able to sleep better. Then when you wake up in the morning, you're going to feel fresher. You're going to have more energy. You can do more movement, more walking. Your mood's better. So again, it's the steps that is the first domino to allow all of this process to start working for you. And again, like even just recently with Shai joined the program, he's in Melbourne, and he's flying a lot. Like he's a flight attendant, so he's basically, his hours are all over the place. And basically the tips that Brad just said about the wind down, getting consistent with his routine when he has control over it, and then getting lots of movement in whenever he arrives somewhere new or when he's home. And his sleep has improved dramatically, like dramatically, in the last 4 to 6 weeks. And we've had this process repeatedly happen by applying this stuff. So if you're someone who struggles with your sleep, which chances are you are with the way most people are these days, you know, this stuff, again, it's simple stuff, but it's really effective as well. And it's actually not always easy to do it consistently, because there's always going to be something super desirable that you're going to want to watch in the evenings, you know. Okay, so let's go into the second point around how it actually helps with body fat. Okay. And do you want to talk about this, Brad? Like how basically walking more, going for a stupid morning walk, can actually help with your ability to lose body fat?
Sure. Obviously, it's important not to eat and walk at the same time, because that defeats it. So if you're wanting to lose weight through walking, don't eat a donut at the same time. That's professional advice. You should hold on to that daily. No, it's just obviously, I mean, we're looking at increasing our overall caloric expenditure or energy expenditure, and that comes through movement. And what makes walking such a good or effective means of weight loss is it's sustainable movement. It's movement that anyone can do. It's not demanding on the body, depending on the kind of walk you're doing, and it keeps you just in a state where it's slow and steady, and just allows you to rack in a lot of extra movement over a day or over a week or over a month, depending on how you're looking at your weight loss experience.
Yeah, and it's super simple as well. Like running, great activity, but it has the highest injury rate out of anything. So the probability of you getting sidelined from running is like 70 to 80%. That's how high the injury rates are for general population. Whereas walking, the injury rate is zero. Like, you know, you're not going to hurt yourself very rarely from walking. So it's super low risk, high return. Also, from a stress management point of view, it's really, really helpful. And like Brad was saying, it helps you decompress your thoughts. So if you're less stressed, your stress eating triggers are going to be lowered as well, which is going to have a positive impact. So again, we're thinking about what's this one behavior that's really easy to implement. You don't need anything magical to go for a walk, and it's having this net positive on so many other areas. And I really started seeing this pattern when I was working in Melbourne. Like most of my clients, if they went on holidays, they'd go to Italy or Japan. They were like the two big destinations that people in Melbourne would go on holidays to. And those holidays were always very walking heavy. So they're going to Italy, they're doing all of the historical walks, looking at everything, doing tours, all this types of stuff. So they would have went from being like at 2,000 to 4,000 steps a day in this kind of stressed office environment to now like really enjoying themselves, completely switched off from work and moving, you know, 6 to 10 hours a day every day. And the thing is, their diet it was all over the place. You know, they were eating pizza and having wine or beer or whatever and pasta and like all of the so-called, you know, not the best approaches from a nutritional standpoint, but just more movement, lower stress. And they were coming back having dropped weight. They were also feeling better from a mobility standpoint. So that's the kind of second big rock that it's going to help you with, is just helping you manage your body composition better. And then the last points that I'd like you to touch on, Brad, would be like recovery wise and like mobility wise, what types of benefits, or how is that even working for people from a standpoint? If they're walking, like how is that helping things?
Just before that, I was thinking, when you gave the example of comparing it with running, it's also from an adherence point of view, certainly in my in my experience, it's much more psychologically pleasing to think, oh, okay, well, going for a walk isn't really like taxing in the way that running is. Sometimes you really have to psych yourself up for a run. But if you're sitting on the couch and like, you're like, oh, well, it's time for a walk, you can really go as easily or intensely as you like. I suppose the same is true of running, but not to the same degree of ease. But yes, so when it comes to mobility, I think if you think like, one of the classic examples is just, we sit so much, we sit with our hips, hip flexors short and tight. Walking allows us to extend those. Movement is generally one of the most important ways of improving mobility. It's literally mobility, to be mobile, to move. Walking is probably one of the great examples of what it means to be mobile. So not having your body stationary, also not necessarily just doing your exercises, which is like maybe the same kind of movement patterns the whole time. It allows you to be upright, which is great for your spine. It allows you to extend your hip flexors. It allows you to work on your ankles. It really is something that just by nature, by virtue of the position you're in, the posture you're in, is going to be great for your mobility.
Yeah, and just not being in those, as you said, like seated positions, which your hip flexors, everything is just either tightening or lengthening and atrophying in that seated position. So again,
no, sorry, Connor. I was just
okay.
thinking, it's like that example when people say, cardio, when you often you've suggested walking, and people say, what about, cycling or a stationary bike or something like that? And I think for a lot of people, they don't necessarily put that link together where, okay, well, yeah, you're getting your heart rate up and you're expending energy, but you're still in that seated position. And if you've got a job where you sit all day and you get into the bike, it means that you're hardly ever breaking that position. So something to be aware of. I liked it when you pointed that out.
Yeah, that's a really good point, mate. So like, again, like if you like cycling, no problem. We're not saying don't cycle, it's bad for you, but we're just thinking of like in the bike, in particular, if you're doing longer cycles and you're on a road bike, you're very like you're hunched over, and it's actually making you in an even more kind of forward rounded postural position. So you're going to get even tighter from all the things that have been making you tight and restricted and more injury prone from decades of sitting. And then, yeah, walking is just a super easy, low risk. You can go out for a run, but you're going to need to warm up most likely. Again, you could do your Achilles is a really, so that on your heel, like injuring that is quite common, and it's a horrible place to get an injury, or plantar fasciitis, which is the sole of the foot as well. I had that for like 4 years, which is horrible from when I was doing triathlons, and I just also didn't know how to rehab properly back then. But yeah, walking is just super low risk, and also from a lymphatic system standpoint. So your lymphatic system is your body's way of cleaning out waste. So it helps you with recovery, and that's also linked to walking. So like from an evolutionary standpoint, I think that basically the walking and lymphatic drainage and circulation, they're all linked to help you better get rid of waste out of your body. So if you have any sorts of maybe inflammation in your lower body, a lot of that can actually be improved with things like walking as well, or just general recovery from exercise. Walking is a really great way of recovering because it's helping with lymphatic drainage and just overall blood flow as well in a very low intensity manner. So again, there's tons of benefits like mobility, fat loss, mental health, like Brad was saying about, helping you decompress, sleep improvements, and then recovery and lymphatic drainage. So again, that's the main reasons why we recommend walking more. And that's why we every 3 months we do a steps challenge. So do you want to maybe talk about some of the benefits that clients received, and maybe we can then talk about some actionable ways of getting in more steps into your day so people can kind of really walk away from this podcast with some actual actionable tips to take away from today as well.
Yeah, obviously part of a step challenge is the kind of good-natured competitiveness that is very motivating for a lot of people. So there's like just the sheer participation. If you're able to join a group, you could do something, get like 5 or 6 friends and do it on your own. Have a little month-long step challenge, for instance. But I'd say what clients have really gained is, one, a huge sense of achievement, because it's amazing some of the numbers that people posted. And even the people that didn't post huge numbers, they posted numbers that were higher than what they ordinarily did. And that's a wonderful thing to be able to say, you know, I look back and I was walking this many steps, now I'm walking this many steps, and it's more, and that's an achievement. So firstly that, secondly, it has helped for people who, you know, are sleeping better, they're feeling less stressed, you know, like being able, I know that one of our clients, her regular activity now is walking with the family, kids, dog, partner, and just, she told me that on the days that the family goes out walking, which is most nights, the kids don't put up a fuss when it's bedtime, and they don't worry about watching TV, which sounds like an amazing parent hack, which we haven't added to the list of benefits.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
great.
yeah. So a great, yeah, kind of, you know, activity to enjoy with the family, feeling like you're decreasing your stress levels, feeling actually like you're using your time better because you're not sort of distracted online, or people have said that they yeah, just sleep, all the things we've basically mentioned, clients have definitely felt the benefits of. Yeah, it's a power. It's crazy. It is so powerful, and it's just the
Yeah, and I
most
love how
simple
it's just so
activity.
easy. Totally, yeah. And like you don't need to do 10,000 steps like that. Research has been disproven, but they're just saying now it's like 6 to 8,000 steps. Like that's kind of what you want to be hitting as your kind of bare ass minimums, you know. So trying to stay above 6,000 on average over the course of a week. So 6 sevens is 42,000 steps on average on a weekly basis, just to try and hit that. And if you're not hitting that already, if you start hitting that, you're going to feel a lot better. From like an actionable standpoint, do you want to share some ways people can build this into their day? So they're, again, most likely very busy. They have enough things going on. They're probably telling themselves they don't have time for another thing. So how can you help them just make this slot into their already busy lives?
Sure. Well, it could be there are many ways, and it's all going to depend on the particular person's environment. So, where they work, what the nature of their work, what kind of time they have, whether they can sort of take a lunchtime walk during the lunch break. But some of the ways that everyone could make little changes is, if you take public transport, a bus or a train, for example, you could stop, get off the stop before your destination and walk the remaining distance. If you drive a car, you could drive, sort of, if you go shopping, park at the far end of the parking lot and take a walk into the shop and back. That's going to add in a little few extra steps. There's the example we spoke about where you said, you know, you've got 5 or 10 minutes between an engagement. Say if you finish one call and you've got another meeting, that's not really enough time to sink your teeth into a particular task. So why not use it as an opportunity to take a 5 or 7 minute walk? Definitely, if you have the choice between using a lift or taking the stairs, take the stairs. If you live in a place where you could walk to the shops or run some of your errands on foot, it's another great way of doing it. I mean, if you live in a city, these things are really, really easy. If you live in a place where it's very car focused, you have to get a little bit more creative. Could also just be if you do drive around for your job. I know one of our clients said she would meet people slightly further away from, park a little bit further away from where she had to meet them and walk the remaining ways. So there's definitely many ways you can go about it. I would say if time does permit, try and think about it as starting off as one little activity that you can do. So you go, okay, well, I'm going to get a 10-minute walk in the morning or after dinner. And once you manage to do that over a few days and weeks, you add in a little bit more. Maybe you can increase the duration, or you can add in a second short walk in your day. And then obviously, if you don't walk weekends, that's a great opportunity to, if you've got a family, if you're on your own, if you've got friends, whatever it may be, you can just go and set out. It's quite easy to walk for an hour and a half. I mean, easy as in manageable physically. And it's really a nice way to do that on the weekend. Nice way to spend the day and get you out the house.
Yeah, these are really good tips. And I think like a lot of it is just when you start becoming more self-aware, you realize that there's tons of things you're probably doing without even thinking about it. I need to get something from the shop. You jump in the car, even though it's like a 15-minute walk away, or even less, but it's like a 4-minute drive. So you just go there. So just starting to find like where are those opportunities to move in your day. And like Paul, who won the challenge, he is as busy as you can be. Like he's a CEO of a company. He's got 3 kids, and he's just like, he is the best excuse ever for being busy, but he got in 15,000 steps a day. So he basically said the big thing that he did, which I thought was a great idea, was one of Brad's tips, which is he would park his car like, half a kilometer to a kilometer away from work. And then he would just walk into the office, grab a coffee on the way. And he did that every morning. And that way he felt fresh and productive at the start of his day as well, versus maybe coming out of the car, being stuck in traffic. And at least he got kind of, 10 to 20 minutes of fresh air every morning. And then the second thing was actually going for a walk with his dog in the evenings. So again, that's a nice transition activity to decompress at the end of a day. It's nice to use a walk, in particular for people who work from home as well. You can use like going for a walk or something like that as your kind of way of switching into home mode, because it's very easy when you work from home that like it's just this blend mess of like you wake up in the morning, you're kind of with your family or whatever, but you're also kind of checking emails, and then you do your work day from home, and in the evening you might be watching TV and checking emails and doing all this stuff. Whereas you could just start your day, okay, transition activity, I don't have any inputs, go for my walk, come back, maybe have my breakfast, and now work starts. And then end of day, I do my end of day routine, whatever that is, make sure everything's done for tomorrow, and then I do my walk for 15 to 20 minutes. That's my transition. And now when I come back into the house, now I'm in home mode again. Like everything's off, and I can kind of, that's going to help from a boundary standpoint as well. And I think that can be very helpful for a lot of people. Yeah, in particular, again, especially for work from home, because that's the downside. It can just become 24/7. So they are the main. Sorry, jump in, Brad.
Just as a little caveat, I think just aware that Connor's not suggesting you get a dog to increase your step count, but it is a great way of doing it. Remember, a dog is not just for walking; it's for loving and becoming a member of the family and all of that as well. There used to be an advert in South African television saying a dog is not just for Christmas. Was a SPCA.
Very true. But you touched on an important point.
Dog is not just for your step count. So
you touched on an important point though, like having a tracker. The most important thing with a tracker is to win. So you need to do anything you can to get your steps up. So that might mean putting your tracker on your dog or your child or your friend. So then you feel good. And then, yeah, it's just all about the numbers on the screen, or you can just input them manually on Google Health or Apple Health. Like you just say, okay, I'm going to put in an extra 6,000 steps there.
Why not?
Yeah.
Well, I've got a friend who, so we've got I won't mention their name because of any reprisal.
No one,
But
no one listens to this podcast anyway, so it doesn't matter. It's like just
we've
me and
got
you and our parents.
my mother says she's stopped listening.
Okay, so it's just my mother listening now then.
Let's say in South Africa, we've got private medical health care is quite common, and one of the major companies gives you a watch, an Apple Watch or a Garmin or whatever it is, and in order for you not to pay for it, so for it to be a freebie, you have to hit a certain amount of weekly activity. And my friend got this watch because they really wanted the Apple Watch,
Yeah.
but wasn't particularly active. And then asked when we would go away together or when there would be a group of us, we just encourage anyone to take the watch. So please, we're going for a walk. Just take this watch with you.
That's so funny. That's the like sometimes you've got these social incentives which are great ideas, and then people always game the system some way, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's So he
Well,
basically got the watch without doing extra activity. So that's a win-win.
well, I drove 800 kilometers in a car with poor wheel alignment, and the steering wheel was shaking. It was a rental, and by the time about just like I'd been sitting in a car the whole day, and before the destination, my watch buzzed 10,000 steps. It's like I've taken about 5 today.
You're like, your back is killing you. You haven't moved. Awesome, mate. So that is everything, guys. So again, don't walking off. It's probably the easiest lever you can pull. You don't need to, like, literally, if you started walking 8,000 steps a day consistently, like on average every week for the next 6 months, I guarantee you your sleep will be way better. You'll probably drop some body fat. You'll feel less stressed. And that is like the simplest habit you can start doing right away. So before we jump off, Brad, do you want to say anything else before you want to share the walking 4,000 program that we've just launched?
Yeah. So if you dial in now on 0800 363, you can get a discounted walking program. It's only going to cost, I think, what did we say? It was $950 for the 4 weeks.
No, $55.95. Yeah, but it's going to go down. It's going down in price. If you act right now, you can get the discount.
I thought it was nice how you gave such a modest, so if you did this many steps over this length of period, these are the benefits you'll achieve. Very modest, realistic benefits. I was expecting, a hyped up sale. Like you'll be, your height will increase. You'll, become more attractive to prospective partners. You'll make your first million, and if you've already made $1 million, you'll make your first $1 billion.
Guaranteed.
So that's nice.
All right, folks, appreciate you listening to our rambles, and we will be in again in the next 2 weeks. Okay.